He ordered the wine first. That is the part I keep coming back to. Not the assistant, not the baby, not the 30 years. The wine. Douglas knew I did not drink red anymore because it gave me headaches, and he ordered a bottle of red anyway, for himself, before he told me he was leaving. I sat there in my anniversary dress, the one with the small pearl buttons he never noticed, and I watched him swirl the glass like a man who had already won something. He had not. He just did not know it yet, and I was not going to tell him at dinner. My name is Catherine. I am 57 years old, and for 30 years I was married to a man who told people he built a company from nothing. He did not build it from nothing. He built it from me. In 1994, Douglas wanted to start a commercial roofing business out of our garage. He had the trucks. He had the loud voice. He did not have the patience to fill out a single form. So I did. I sat at our kitchen table with a borrowed typewriter and a stack of incorporation papers, and I typed in the names, the addresses, the share structure. His accountant told us to list one sole shareholder for liability reasons. Douglas waved his hand and said, "Put your name on it, honey. I do not care about that paperwork stuff." I put my name on it. He never looked at the document again. For the first 2 years, our garage smelled like hot tar and old coffee. I answered the phone in a soft voice and pretended to be a secretary named Kathy because Douglas thought it sounded more professional than a wife. I filed the taxes. I signed the first loan at the bank. I drove to the post office at 10 at night to mail bids because Douglas had forgotten the deadline again. When a customer called angry, I was the one who calmed them down. When a worker did not get paid, I was the one who apologized. Douglas was the face. I was the spine. By the time our daughter was in middle school, the company had 12 trucks and an office on Industrial Road. Douglas started wearing nicer shirts. He started saying we at dinner parties and meaning himself. I noticed it the first time at a Christmas party in 2003 when a contractor asked him how he got started, and Douglas said, "I built this thing from nothing, brother, just me and a phone book." I was standing right next to him, holding his coat. He did not look at me. The contractor did not look at me either. I remember the carpet was green. I remember thinking the punch tasted like cough syrup. I did not say anything. I never said anything. That was the first small thing. There were hundreds more. There was the time he forgot my birthday because he was at a trade show, and when I mentioned it a week later, he said birthdays were childish and I was being dramatic. There was the time our daughter graduated from college, and Douglas told the photographer to take a picture of the founder and his girl, meaning him and her, and I stood off to the side holding the flowers. There was the Tuesday morning in 2011 when I made him pancakes and he ate them cold at his desk an hour later and told me they were fine, just fine, in a voice that meant they were not. I threw the rest in the trash and I almost laughed. I do not know why. It was not funny. It was just so small. People think betrayal arrives in one big door slam. It does not. It arrives in cold pancakes, in a husband who orders the wine first, in the way he stops saying your name and starts saying the wife. I want to tell you about Brittany now because I know that is the name you are waiting for. But you should know I did not hate her at first. I felt sorry for her. She was 29 years old. She had a small tattoo on her wrist that said, "Breathe." And she wore perfume that smelled like green apples and hairspray. The first time Douglas hired her, he told me she was a project coordinator, very organized, very young, very eager. He said it like I should be proud of him for finding her. I said that was nice. I poured myself a glass of water. I folded a dish towel. That is how I remember most of the bad news in my life. I was always folding something. For about a year, I told myself I was imagining things. He came home later. He showered before bed instead of in the morning. He laughed at his phone in a way he had never laughed at me. Once, he brought home a small bag from a jewelry store and put it in his briefcase before I could ask. I did not ask. I told myself I was being suspicious. I told myself 30 years of marriage was worth more than a paper bag. There was one night, in October, I think, maybe November, I just remember the heat was already on, when Douglas came home and kissed me on the forehead and said he was glad I was still here. Still here. That was the phrase. I held onto it like a small, warm stone for weeks. I thought, see, he loves you. He is just tired. He is just stressed. The company is growing. The company. Always the company. His company, he called it. His baby. That false warmth, that small kiss on the forehead, that is the part that hurts the most now. Because 4 months later, he sat me down at our anniversary dinner and ordered the wine first. The restaurant was the same one we went to for our 10th anniversary. He picked it on purpose. I know that now. He wanted the symmetry. He wanted to be the kind of man who could end a marriage in a beautiful room with candles on the table. He ordered the red. He let the waiter pour. He took a long sip. And then he told me, very calmly, the way you might tell a coworker you are switching departments, that he was leaving me for Brittany, and that Brittany was pregnant, and that he hoped I would be reasonable about the company. Reasonable about the company. I remember the candle was tilted slightly to the left. I remember the bread basket was empty. I remember a woman at the next table laughing at something her husband said, and I thought, that used to be us, except it never really was it? I did not cry. I did not raise my voice. I asked Douglas if he wanted dessert. He looked confused. He said no. I said I did. I ordered the chocolate torte. I ate every bite while he watched. He paid the bill. He drove me home. He slept in the guest room. He thought I was in shock. I was not in shock. I was thinking about the paperwork. I did not sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I had typed those incorporation papers 30 years before, and I went through a small fireproof box I kept in the back of my closet. Douglas did not know about the box. He had never asked. Inside were the original articles of incorporation from 1994, yellow at the edges, the typewriter ink slightly smudged on the bottom line. Sole shareholder, Catherine. My maiden name, because we had not changed it yet on the legal documents. His accountant had told us to update it eventually. We never did. Douglas had signed dozens of papers over the years that referenced the corporation. He had never read the founding document. Not once. Not in 30 years. I made myself a cup of tea. I let it go cold. I almost laughed again, the same small laugh as the cold pancakes morning. It was not funny. It was just so small. A single line on a single page, and he had built his whole identity on top of it without ever looking down. I waited through the weekend. I was very kind to him. I made him coffee on Saturday. I asked about Brittany in a soft voice, the same soft voice I used to answer the phone in 1994. He thought I was being reasonable. He told his friend on the phone that Catherine was taking it like a champ. I heard him say it through the wall. I folded a dish towel. I waited. Monday morning, I drove to the office at 7:45. I wore the navy suit I had bought for our daughter's college graduation, the one nobody had photographed me in. I unlocked the front door with my own key, the key I had carried for 26 years. I went to the conference room. I called a board meeting of one because I was the only shareholder, and I documented the minutes in my own handwriting on a yellow legal pad. I terminated Douglas's employment for cause, citing conduct unbecoming of an officer. I signed it. I dated it. March 3rd, 2025. Then I called Douglas into the office. He came in smiling, holding a coffee, expecting a conversation about the divorce settlement. I slid the paper across the table. He read it twice. His hand started to shake. The coffee tilted slightly in the cup. A small brown drop landed on the cuff of his shirt. He did not notice. He looked up at me, and he said very quietly, "Kathy, this is not funny." He had not called me Kathy in 20 years. I told him security would walk him to his car. I told him Brittany would also need to clear her desk, because as the sole shareholder, I was eliminating her position. He opened his mouth. He closed it. He sat down in the chair across from me, the chair clients used to sit in, and for the first time in 30 years, he looked at the wall behind me, where the original incorporation certificate was framed. I had hung it there years ago. He had walked past it every day. He had never read it. Brittany resigned that afternoon by email. The email was 3 sentences long. She did not spell my name correctly. I did not correct her. People ask me now if I feel victorious. I do not. That is the part nobody tells you. The revenge does not feel like fireworks. It feels like folding a dish towel. It feels like a cold cup of tea on a kitchen table at 3 in the morning. It feels like a navy suit nobody photographed. The company is doing fine. Better, actually. I kept most of the staff. I gave the office manager a raise she had been asking Douglas for since 2019. I hired a new project coordinator, a 52-year-old woman named Denise, who has 2 grown sons and does not wear perfume. The trucks still go out at 6 in the morning. The phones still ring. I do not pretend to be a secretary named Kathy anymore. I answer with my real name now. Catherine. Owner. Douglas calls sometimes. He does not say much. He breathes into the phone and then hangs up. Brittany had the baby in July, a girl. I heard about it from a former employee who ran into them at a grocery store. She said Douglas looked tired. She said the baby had his eyes. I said that was nice. I poured myself a glass of water. I folded a dish towel. I still have the dress with the small pearl buttons. I have not worn it again. It hangs in the back of my closet next to the fireproof box. And sometimes, on a Tuesday morning, I make myself pancakes. I eat them while they are still hot. I sit at the kitchen table where I typed those papers in 1994, and I think about the wine he ordered first, and the way he swirled it in the glass like a man who had already won something, and I almost laugh. I do not know why. It is not funny, it is just so small. I kept the wine, by the way, the bottle from the anniversary dinner. He left it on the table when he walked me to the car. I asked the waiter to wrap it up. It sits in the rack in my dining room now, unopened, the label slightly faded. I do not plan to drink it. I just like knowing it is mine.